going to get in there and talk about this software, and I'm going to sort of try and convince you some of the reasons why I think it's not even a bigger deal than it already is. Okay, and that's why I sort of was picking on, I went ahead and chose Peter McKinnon as an example. Nothing necessarily wrong with him, but he was just the first one to pop into my head. But one of the things you got to keep in mind, opinion leaders are really big nowadays. I think this has always been the case, but I think especially nowadays. And what's happening now is, 40 years ago, an opinion leader was just a photographer in a community that was the best photographer, and everyone would come to him. And I think that sort of worked. I think it worked. They would ask him, what are you using? How are you doing this? How are you doing that? That sort of worked. But what we have nowadays is a different model than that. And I think it really affects DaVinci Resolve in a negative way. For example, the software is currently, there's a free version of it, as most of you know. And so if you think about this from the big blogger and sort of influential opinion leaders point of view, which of these guys are gonna, and again, I'm not necessarily picking on Peter here, but just in general, I'm saying all these bigger YouTube channels, how many of these guys do you think are gonna really push DaVinci Resolve? Even if they go out of their way and they use it, it's free software. So you got to understand, that's just, this is just the truth of YouTube. I'm sorry, but it's just the truth. So people they're going to be less apt to push something that's really good, that's impossible for them to make money at. Okay, they're just not going to do it, right? Because there's no incentive, there's no financial incentive. So, unfortunately, I feel like somebody like these big bloggers is going to keep pushing the programs that are making them money, that they can link in their descriptions and the premieres and whatever it happens to be. Okay, so I think that's something to keep in mind. Why aren't more people using DaVinci Resolve? Why isn't it just completely taking over? And I'm answering this question right off the bat, and I'm telling you, personally, I think it will soon. But second, I think it's because their model sort of, I think they know exactly what they're doing, but it's just a really awkward model for the current day, the way things are sort of presented to the public, which is by and large, I think, by YouTube. Okay, so the first thing we're going to get in here and do is check out their training. I mean, this is just absolutely absurd to me almost. Not only is the software free, which we'll probably get a little bit into, but you can't even imagine how good this is until you come over here. So I personally have watched The Art of Color Grading, and if we get in here and you just look at this just for a second, how well done everything is and everything. And so we don't want to hear that, but it's 2 hours long of a professional color grader that's sort of right in there. A DaVinci Resolve specialist color grader giving you her tips and tricks and pointers and maybe just how to use the software, okay? And every single one of these lessons, I'm sure, is exactly the same quality. I'm personally going to delve into the Fusion one soon, and also the Fairlight one. There should be one on Fairlight. That's the sound, which we're going to talk more about. This one here. And let's just jump in. I'm just curious to see how long these are. So this one's an hour long, and so it doesn't stop there. If you go down here, there's these training books that you can download, and it says buy from Amazon, so maybe I was wrong about this. I didn't see that before, but I thought you could just download them. Let me click on one of these. Actually, I don't understand why that's like that. Yeah, it seems like you can just download the PDF. I'm not sure what that buy from Amazon thing left, but look, there's all this literature just sitting there waiting for you. Okay, so the fact that it's free and the fact that they have professional training, along with, of course, there's usually training popping up. I'm personally watching a couple of YouTubers right now, smaller YouTubers that I think are giving some really nice sort of quick, I like the really fast lessons, like the 5-minute ones. But yeah, as usual, that stuff's there as well. Okay, something that's really noteworthy, and for me anyway, is you'll notice they're also designing and promoting their camera equipment, and this is where I think they're sort of going with their marketing. And only time will tell how savvy it is, but they're getting their name out there with this free software, and they've obviously produced this amazing. I mean, I just can't tell you how much their sort of ethos, if that's the good word, how much it agrees with me. They're putting out these products that are really made for like people that want to put their gear into a backpack and yet be able to produce Hollywood quality stuff. I just think that's absolutely where the future is going. Something that has great stabilization in it, that's really small, that can do 4K, that can just hit it out of the park, and you can just hold it in the palm of your hand. Okay, and I think that's where we're going. And you can see even in their little picture here, he even has a really compact, probably a little fluid video head or something like that. So I just think this is where everything's going to be going in the future. Sort of gear getting more compact, we're not really going to lose anything. And if you watched our other video today, there's a Hollywood director right now making films with an iPhone, and he feels like he's saying right now anyway that he's going to continue making his films with iPhones because it's very liberating. So I really like what I see from the company, and I even had a video about their photography and their website, and you look at this photo, it is A+, okay? All this stuff is just, I just think this company, whatever you got to do, I'm convincing you today to get into Davinci Resolve, but buy stock in this company, whatever. I mean, I think they're really on the ball. They're really going that extra mile that I think is really conducive of somebody just exploding in the future. Sort of, they're acting sort of altruistic in terms of giving their software away, which I just think that's amazing. Okay, so take advantage of all this stuff, and I'm going to try and convince you of that even a little bit more here at the end. So I just picked Premiere Pro because I used to use that, and I know a lot of people use it, and I'd say it is the predominant source of, like, if somebody does a video editing tutorial, they're probably more likely than not going to be on Premiere Pro. Okay, so let me get a little drink of water. Now I'm going to jump over to Davinci in a second here, but I just wanted to note that if you look at this is sort of Premiere Pro's, I guess you could call it their editing suite for video, but Premiere Pro covers a lot, and I think it's getting even better about adding things like masking and everything, which used to only be in After Effects, but Premiere Pro has a lot of the basic stuff that you used to be able to do only in After Effects. But the point here really is that After Effects is such a powerful program, and I've used it at a very cursory level, and I just found it was just too much to hop over, and I just was like, forget it. I'm just not going to say animate my titles. I'm just not going to, it just took too long for me, and I was just over it. So what I really want to emphasize to you with Davinci is Davinci actually is Premiere Pro, but it doesn't stop there. Davinci is After Effects. It is Adobe Audition. It's all within there. It's absolutely amazing. And I actually don't know much about Adobe Spark and what these are. But anyway, we're gonna jump over into the actual program just to show you what I was talking about here. So let's get into the actual program. And here we are in Davinci Resolve. And yeah, let's just take a quick tour through here, just so you guys are on the fence, or you're using Final Cut or Premiere Pro. Hopefully, I can convince you, because I've never seen a company like this, and I just feel like these people think like me. I really feel like that. I've felt like that for a while now. But let's just get in here, and you see down here, there's these tabs, and I love this so much. And even in my photography, I've actually sort of taught in my courses that you should get in there and do your lighting first and sort of get your luminosity, and then later on a different layer jump over into your color and do your color work. And so you kind of have these discrete steps where you're doing lighting, and then you're doing sort of contrast and luminosity work, and then you jump into color. And guess what? That's exactly what they have here down on these tabs, the way this works. So the first thing you do over here is it's just an import tab, and it's really very basic, but the truth is you can import anytime you're in DaVinci Resolve, I've found. And this is a great new section here. I didn't import anything, but this is a really quick way. It's called the Cut tab, and it's just a quick way to sort of put things in here for people like me that are making quick vlogs and stuff. I can just lay stuff down here, and this shows me my entire timeline up here, always at 100%, and then this will let me zoom in and cut a little bit more. I've used this, but I really prefer this tab, which is more Premiere-like, which I'm used to, and so I jump over here a lot, and this is where you can just cut your project and do stuff. But I kind of like having the option between jumping back, because certain things are really easy to do in the Cut tab, and I can just go and do them over there, and certain things are really easy to do in the Edit tab, and I can just go over there. And this is really nice and customizable. Like, you could see that I could get more space in there, and if I need an effect, I can just come over here and add it. Again, I'm not sure if it'll do that. It will. Since I didn't have a project, I wasn't sure, but you can add it. And they do have some of these more 3D-ish looking titles as stock just coming with it, okay? Just some cool stuff in here, whatever they happen to be. And yeah, so you can go ahead and minimize those after you're done, and that gives you more space with your timeline, which I think is really cool. Now this is what I would call, this tab you're jumping in now is what I would call the After Effects tab. And you know, we're gonna expose myself here. I'm not really familiar with this yet, and I really want to get in there and see how good it is and see how quickly you're able to both design and render you know, really cool effects and sort of masking in video. This might be where you do this, or the Color tab might be where you sort of mask something in. But anyway, the point of this is that I also want to mention how quickly this program seems to be at both rendering, and I've also noticed it's really fast at stabilization, which is just huge for me, because most of my shooting I'm walking around with a camera and I'm just holding, I'm not even trying to keep it stable, just kind of vlog like stuff. And when I'm over here in this, I'm not sure if it's going to let me do it because this is a title, but let's see, you go up to the inspector here, and I don't think it's going to let me do this. Let's see, it won't. Well, it does have it actually. So you just double click that stabilization, and since this is a title, but it's right there, and I've used a default on it, and it just, I'm telling you, 10-second, 20-second clips, it'll stabilize in a few seconds, and it looks really nice. Like, I don't notice any really funky stuff as much as I did when I was using Premiere Pro, and also, like I was saying, it goes faster. And I feel like it just does a better job at sort of taking the edge off. It doesn't try and go too far and make it too perfectly Hollywood-like. It just tries to sort of take the edge off. And of course you could get in there and change the settings. And if you really needed a very stable shot, of course you could do that. But the other thing I wanted to talk about, once again, we might get stymied because this is just a title. And I'm not sure you have these options with a title, but is the Optical Flow. And there's one, I actually forget the name of it, but it's the very last sort of algorithm that the Optical Flow uses, the highest quality one. That one is just a bomb. So what you use Optical Flow for is if you want to take your normal footage, say 30 frames per second, and really slow it down to say half speed, 15 frames per second, where it's going twice as slow, but you don't have that information, you don't have those extra frames, so Optical Flow will kind of add them for you. And if you use that, I really should remember the name, it's the last option on there, but yeah, it takes a while to render, that's the one thing, but it is really nice, I'm telling you. Alright, so those two things, Optical Flow and stabilization, I feel are really amazing in here. They render fast, and I feel like it's really workable. As I felt in Premiere Pro, if I wanted to stabilize a bunch of stuff, it would just take forever, and it was really hard to deal with. Okay, so after all that stabilization options and the Optical Flow and stuff, you get over here to the Color tab, and I mean, it is just filled with, I mean, it makes so much sense too. You have curves here. You have these great color tools over here, and you have all these different options to do stuff. I mean, that whole 2-hour tutorial is about all this. And the thing that I really love about it is it's a little bit, I know it's a little bit abstract, I know, for me too when I first got in here, but these are called nodes, and when you're coloring your footage, you make one node, and that one might be for the contrast. Okay, you can see that getting lighter, and you can see it getting darker there. And so if you think about it, a lot of these things you don't want to be coloring on the same node that you're adding contrast to. It's sort of a different process. It doesn't really make sense to do that, and I feel that in my real estate photography work too. That's why I try and keep color separate from my sort of, when I'm trying to get my luminosity values, I try and keep those separate, at least on separate layers. And that's the same thing here. You can go ahead and work with different nodes. So how would you do that? Let's see, add node, and you just say add serial node. So you could have worked on your contrast in this first node, and in this second node it could be just strictly you're working on the colors. Okay, you're changing the colors of that. Okay, and they're independent of one another. All right, if I'm saying that correctly, okay? You guys know I'm not. Go ahead and watch that video that I was referencing back on the website if you really want to learn from the professionals, all right? But I just wanted to give you the gist of this, how a lot of times, like in Photoshop, if you get a curves layer and you do contrast on the curves layer and you do color, I don't think that's the best way. I think it's really a lot better to sort of independently make a layer for contrast and then a layer on top of that for color. And so I think that's a much better way to handle things. Okay, and that's what they do in there. And so you can make as many nodes as you want to. You can just keep going. You might have one to, anyway, we'll move on here. This is pretty much like the version of Adobe Audition, where you can come in here and you can take noise out of your audio files, or you can compress it, which means just sort of bringing down the really low sounds and bringing up the really low sounds and bringing down the really low bringing up the low sounds and down the high sounds. Okay, so you got compressors in here and can get rid of noise. So just a great place. This is one of the tabs that I'm really wanting to learn more about in the near future. And lastly, you got an entire export tab here just for exporting. And as you can probably imagine, they don't hold you back much at all. I mean, they got all the good stuff in here that you could ever possibly imagine. Okay, so they don't hold you back, and they obviously don't watermark you like some of these free softwares do. So it's just absolutely out of this world. I highly recommend you guys look into getting this. It's free, right? So it's a really small investment. I would go ahead and put this on your computer if you're up to date with your computer and stuff, and everything will go on. They currently have a Davinci Resolve 16, but it looks like it's in beta, but that's the one I got. I wanted to get in there and start with this one. I didn't want to update the 16 and sort of start learning the new things, because I believe this cut tab right here is very new. All right, so sort of cool starting off with the new stuff, just starting off with it, because that way it's not a shock to your system. It's just, it was always there for you. All right, so get in there, start using this program. You're gonna lose your Premiere Pro bill or whatever you had, and you're actually, in my opinion, moving up a notch in terms of your overall ease, and I feel quickness, and then the effectiveness of the software. I feel like it's better at this point. I just love the color grading. I love the stabilization. That's not something you might use in real estate too much, but you get the point. The color grading is great, and the sort of ability to neutralize your colors in that color tab, which is something we definitely would have. And you could also do masking and stuff in the color tab and all sorts of good stuff. Okay, so get out there, get in there, and start using it. See if it agrees with you. I picked this up. Even my wife, who's not really computer savvy, she picked up this program, and she's been cutting in here her own projects just like nothing. All you gotta do to learn how to cut is just, most of you guys know, just have that tool and then the delete tool, and that's it, and you can cut projects. So really easy to learn, especially if you're just getting into video editing. It's just, you'd have to ignore a lot of the stuff and just sort of take it slow. Okay, so that'll do it for this time, guys. I just wanted to get that out there, how much I love that program. I wanted to get that out there in the world, and I know I was sort of waiting to make this video, but somebody sort of egged me on earlier today with a comment they left. Let me get to the, there we go. All right. But that'll do it, everyone. Thanks for tuning in, and I'm going to head off to bed. It's about 2 o'clock here in the morning, so I'm keeping everyone up. So thanks again for watching, and I will see you for the next one, okay? Thanks.